Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. Join award-winning host Dale Davidson as he interviews the most remarkable people you'll find in the entertainment capital of the world. You'll meet entertainers, sports figures, newsmakers, community and business leaders, and people just like you with stories that'll touch your heart. Now, here's Dale Davidson.
Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host. Each and every week we bring you fascinating guests, usually from Las Vegas, and we've done it again. Pastor Danny Daniels, who is a good friend, and he's a great friend to Las Vegas.
Hey,
Danny?
Dale, good to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Man, what a blessing. Yeah. What an honor.
And I should say, Pastor Danny Daniels, Reverend Danny Daniels, Dr. Danny Daniels, and Sergeant Danny Daniels.
USMC. Yeah. Semper Fi out there.
There you go. And we will talk about that some, because we're going to go into your life a little bit if we can.
You bet.
You are a subject of my new book, which is Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You're a chapter all by yourself, where we talk about Mortal Midnight, which was your presentation when you were a Billy Graham evangelist, as well as a book by the same name. If I'm not mistaken, it was Mortal Midnight from an M16 to John 3:16.
That's the title of my message that I preached at Promise Keeper Wake-Up Calls, Billy Graham Crusades, men's retreats, men's conferences, and I still do.
Yeah.
And so the title of my message was From an M16 to John 3:16, how I came to know Christ as a result of a couple of experiences in the Vietnam War. The Mortal Midnight captures one night, February 22nd and 23rd, 1969. A couple of dozen Marines and myself were guarding a ridgeline, and we didn't know that on the other side of the ridgeline there were bunched up Viet Cong sappers. In other words, suicide guys that were going to come up in a suicide wave. And of course they came up, they would tie dynamite, booby trap, satchel charges on their body, and they would jump in where we were in the open fighting holes to take our lives. Similar to the kamikazes. So those were in the air. We call them sappers. And interestingly enough, that night when we picked up the bodies and things, they had tied their legs together with rope and chicken wire, so when they came up in the wave, nobody could turn back. They all come up together. And generally they would stop our guarding of a ridgeline or a base camp, and then the regulars would come in to overrun. And so when
the
we went,
Vietnamese Army would come up behind them.
In many cases, this was during the 1969, in fact, the beginning of the 1969 Tet Offensive. The big one was 68, but there was also a second one. And so when we went up on that hill that night around 9 o'clock, and we didn't know that most of us had less than 4 or 5 hours to live. And so when the suicide wave came up, they broke through and centered themselves, actually, in the open fighting hole that I was assigned to. And
how did you end up not being in the fighting hole?
At midnight, an hour before, a corporal who outranked me, I was a lance corporal, he asked to trade places with me. He was in a tower, open tower, right behind the open fighting hole. And so he outranked me. I went ahead and traded places with him. Now, he died. He died in the initial suicide wave, and we fought him off, and I survived. Everything was quiet on the ridgeline except the sound of the moaning and groaning of the wounded and the dying. And then at 4 a.m., a second wave came up against us, and they actually surrounded us. They planted a Viet Cong flag on our hillside.
As though they had captured it.
As if, yeah. And then we called airstrikes over us and napalm and something that was called Puff the Magic Dragon. It was a C-47, that Gatling gun, and instead of hearing the machine gun rat-a-tat, it was one constant buzz. And I mean, it was like a straight red line with every fifth bullet being a red tracer. It was just a straight line. Fought our way out. Sun started to rise the next morning. I was scared to death. I was shaking, and we did what we had to do. There was some hand-to-hand combat involved, and the next morning it dawned on me that Corporal Vic, who traded places with me, he died. Somebody died in my place. And so a few months later I came back home to the United States, California.
Which is where you grew up?
Which I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose, where I grew up. And it dawned on me that somebody really died in my place. And so in my Marine Corps station, one of the Marines invited me to come to church with him. I kept refusing. I blew him off. And finally I went just to get him off my back. And I heard the pastor preach. And to make a long story short, within a few months I made a profession of faith, public profession of faith in Jesus Christ. And as I studied the Word of God, as I studied and read the Bible, it dawned on me that, wait a minute, if Jesus died in my place on the cross, that Marine died in my place. Now, not intentionally like Jesus. That was prophesied. That was the very reason he came. Mark 10:45 says, I have come to be a ransom for all. He came to die on the cross. I began to understand what doctrinally is called the vicarious substitutionary atonement of Jesus Christ. He died in my place. So I put together a little pamphlet, a little tract called Mortal Midnight, and it became a book. It became actually a documentary film, a movie called Mortal Midnight, and then I started preaching that all over the place, all over the world actually, and it goes from an M16 to John 3:16, and in it I talk about John 3:16, the fact of God's love, the force of God's love, and the face of God's love in Jesus Christ. And when I was on that hill, I didn't know that God loved me. And so I tie the two in.
That's wonderful. Danny, we need to take a brief break. I want to talk about some of those world travels. As you know, I keep trying to stump you with names of places in the world that you might not have been to, and so far I haven't been able to come up with one. So we'll talk about Timbuktu and elsewhere.
Well, one place I haven't preached is Bora Bora yet. So,
okay.
You know, that's on my bucket list.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
You'll get there. We'll be back with Pastor Danny Daniels right after this.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
Enjoy terrific Las Vegas shows, scrumptious dining, and fun-filled attractions at half price. Wow! Visit LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. If you use discount code VEGAS, you'll get over $2,000 worth of discounts for only $34.95. Just $34.95. LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. Act now.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. We're very pleased to have as our special guest Pastor Danny Daniels, who resides right here in Las Vegas. How long have you been here, Danny?
Since 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was living in my wife and I were living in Southern California. I had been on staff at Saddleback Church as an associate pastor to Rick Warren. I did their missions, evangelism, outreach, training and witnessing, and a variety of things. And we just felt a call to come to Las Vegas, and people asked me, well, why did you leave Southern California to go to Las Vegas? And I said, well, I got sick and tired of the phoniness and the plasticness of Southern California, and I wanted to go where the phoniness and plasticness is for real, you know, not fake plastic, but for real. So
yeah, where people are
ended
just
up
down
in Vegas.
home and
you know, a normal place to live.
Yeah, that's it. Let's talk about Rick Warren and your relationship with him, because people might be interested. You and Rick go way back, huh?
I knew Rick when he was a teenager. When he was 19, I met him at a meeting. We clicked, got to be best of friends, went to college together. We mentored each other, prayed with each other. We used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to pray an hour or so. We did that for maybe about a year.
Wow.
While all the other preacher boys were sleeping in, we were praying out in the dugout of the baseball field at Cal Baptist College, now university. And I remember I would pray, Lord God, use me, let me do interesting things, let me be all over the world. And Rick preached about I prayed about making an impact and being useful, being usable and things. And we all know about Rick and the church in Saddleback and his ministry and things. And I also got to go all over the world.
Yeah, he sent you on purpose-driven church conferences?
I did conferences, purpose-driven church training, pastors' conferences all over the world. I would usually be the one that would be sent into the dangerous spots where a lot of other people wouldn't want to go, but I went. And in my younger life, I always had a penchant for adventure. In my 20s, I was kind of a self-styled Christian soldier of fortune and go to South America for adventure. Dale, on my 16th birthday, I went and told my mother and father that I'm quitting school, quitting high school, and I'm going to be a soldier of fortune and adventurer, and I'm going to go to South America and have adventure. And my dad said, well, how are you going to finance it? And I said, well, I'm first going to go to Placerville, pan for gold, and with the gold I find, then I'm going to go to South America and be a soldier of fortune.
It's a plan.
It's a plan, yeah. And of course, you know, that didn't happen. But I've been all over the world. I've gone through 4 passports. My last current passport had 147 stamps or patches on them. I've preached on every continent. There was a time I was on 90 to 100 airplanes a year, and I remember 3 weekends in a row I preached on 3 different continents, sometimes meetings of my own, sometimes conferences for Saddleback and pastors' meetings. I also had opportunity to preach in Billy Graham's crusades.
What was that like?
Oh man, they wanted me to share my mortal and midnight testimony from an M16 to John 3:16. And it was played on the Moody Radio Network, and the North American Billy Graham Crusade director heard it, and a few months later I get this phone call, would I be willing to speak at Billy Graham's Crusades? Would I be willing, you know, at that time?
Let me think about that. Yes.
At that time I was pastoring a little Southern Baptist church in Fremont, California, and all that, and you know, I didn't have to think about it. I don't want to sound over spiritual and things, but you know, I didn't even have to pray about it. I knew this was what God wanted, and so I got to have those opportunities, and it was just a wonderful thing. The thing I remember the most about the various crusades, and they would actually fly me out to the crusades, and I would speak a couple of times in the venues. Before the crusades, in the evening in the stadium, Billy Graham himself would go to prisons, schools, military camps within a radius and preach. At that time, when I got called to be part of the team, he was not healthy, so his son Franklin, myself, Ralph Bell, Leighton Ford used to do it. They filled in and preached, so I got to go to military bases, mainly a lot of prisons and things. And it was just a real exciting thing. They put me up in the hotel with the crusade team. The thing I remember the most, other than the wonderful Christians that I met and just the excitement of working with the music folks. I mean, we'd have Johnny Cash, Charlie Daniels Band doing the music, and I'm walking down the hotel with them and this and that. And, you know, Charlie Daniels, lead guitar player, showed me the licks to Still in Saigon there at the front of the hotel. And it was
and he's a blues guitarist, too, by the way.
I've been known to pluck a few Stratocasters and things. The thing I remember the most was at 9 o'clock in the morning, the whole team would have a prayer meeting. I think that was the biggest impact. Beyond all the excitement, the crowd, the 50, 60, 70,000 people in the stadiums, and all the media, and times I got interviewed and got photographed with Mr. Graham, and this, the thing I remember the most is the time of prayer with just the core team. And
they were very spiritual.
Oh man, you talk about fervent prayer. You know, George Beverly Shea, Cliff Barrows, Franklin Graham. Here I'm kneeling next to Franklin Graham, and we're praying. And I was kind of like the song, you know, Mr. Custer, that song, what am I doing here? I thought, did they make a mistake? Are they going to come any minute and say, oh, we made a mistake, you're not the person
Danny Daniels,
we
not
wanted.
Danny Davis?
Yeah, actually there is a Danny Davis. That's an evangelist in Southern Baptist work. And but I've gotten some phone calls, you know, but that's like something completely different. But getting back seriously, there were prayer meetings that I call hell shakers, prayers that shook hell. And I know after those prayer meetings with those men of God, I mean, you have to remember the core team, Billy and Cliff Barrows and George Beverly Shea and the Wilson brothers and things. They were together 50, 60 years. Never a hint of not even a hint of scandal.
Yeah, yeah.
And just imagine the power. That's the one thing I remember and cherish. It was always fun for me to go into the arenas and go into a convention center with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 seats during the afternoon, knowing that night I would be speaking there. And that's all good and fun for a preacher. But the thing I cherish and remember the most is the times of prayer.
That's nice. That's sweet. We need to take another brief break. I want to talk about some of the danger that you've been in and the hot spots around the world, because you're like Forrest Gump. You've been there. You've been everywhere and in the middle of a lot of stuff. So we'll be back with Danny Daniels talking about adventures around the world right after this. Hello, I'm Dale Davidson. I hope you're enjoying Las Vegas tonight. The guests we've had on the program are wonderful examples of Christians who take seriously Christ's command to love one another. In addition to the hundreds of television stations across the United States now carrying our show, we have been presented with the outstanding opportunity to bring these inspiring stories to people around the world. An international satellite network in the Russian and Ukrainian languages has asked us to provide them with episodes to be broadcast to millions. To make a gift to support this very special effort, please send your check or money order to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To use your credit or debit card, call 702-480-3989. Thank you, and God bless you. Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. We have Danny Daniels with us today. He's a fascinating guy and a real man's man. I was thinking during the break that in your book and in the book that you appear in that I wrote, we really make a point of emphasizing the manliness of Christianity, that a man can be a manly man and be a Christian and have adventures.
Yeah.
Men who think it's a crutch or think it's for weak people are truly mistaken. They can have adventures like they've never had before.
I used to think that until I went in the Marine Corps. In my men's conferences and men's retreats I speak in, and actually in some of the Promise Keeper wake-up calls I spoke in, I had a message that was titled, "The Greatest Adventure a Man Can Have," which is following Christ. That's the greatest adventure of all. It takes a real man, it takes a real woman to live for Jesus Christ. And so, as I mentioned earlier, that I had this penchant for adventure and travel. I guess you call it wanderlust. My mom always said, "You'll never settle down. You're a gypsy," and I just had it. I just had it in me. And so in high school, they asked us to write a paper on our 3 goals and dreams and wishes for our life in the future.
Right.
And I wrote down, I want to do exciting, daring, adventurous things Number 2, I wrote down that I want to see the world. And number 3, I put down I want to have a lot of friends.
Okay.
So 2 out of 3 ain't too bad. I've been all over the world and done adventure, but I've got better than friends. I have brothers and sisters in Christ all over the world. So I've been involved in some pretty things. Some would say it's dangerous or risky. In my early 20s, I was a smuggler. I smuggled Bibles into the Soviet world. Of course, I looked at myself as a newspaper boy. Technically, we were called couriers.
Yes.
But smuggling was involved. I made 21 border crossings, and that was an adventure in and of itself. You know how Jesus healed blind eyes to see?
Yes.
We would pray to take seeing eyes to be blind. I got caught once, detained in the Soviet world, and that was quite an adventure.
What happened?
They forced us to, they arrested us on import-export violations, technically, even though we were bringing in Bibles. We had to sign, me and the guy I was smuggling with, delivering Bibles with, we had to sign a confession, and we got released the next morning. We were held in a barracks, military barracks, among the Soviets. And, you know, you're in your mid-20s, it's adventure. I'd be scared to death if it was today, my age.
You know what
now,
can happen.
Yeah, you're you're young. And
indestructible.
I got arrested in Belfast, Northern Ireland at the height of the hostilities in 1975. I actually walked out into the middle of the no man's land, Falls Road and Shanklin Road, and was there. And all of a sudden I see a wedge of British soldiers in a wedge with their weapons out coming at me. They circled me, and I had machine guns on my stomach, back, and 2 sides. And they arrested me, took me to a compound there, put me under interrogation, asked me what I was doing, and I just said, well, I'm a tourist. And I said, there's no tourists right now. I actually was smuggled into Belfast myself, and that was another adventure. I've seen, not only I've been arrested and detained in Muslim areas, going in, and it's an adventure. Like I said, I got more than what I wanted to when I talked about being a Christian soldier of fortune. But I also love to travel and go to places I hadn't been before. So I've swum in the Amazon, I've trekked the Himalayas, the Sahara. I've been 10 different trips to Africa, the Congo Basin. I've been above the Arctic Circle. I've been in Borneo. I stood toe-to-toe with a lion in Africa, and the lion took a swing at my face. And, of course, I ducked. If you think I'm exaggerating, you can ask my wife. She saw it.
She saw it happen.
There, yeah. And one thing about a lion is that their paws, if you got a little kitty cat or a cat, their paws are about as big as our heads.
Yeah.
And then in Borneo, I stood toe-to-toe to a cobra, which was kind of heavy duty. I was speaking at a retreat center in Borneo, and during the mornings, I'd like to go out on hikes in the triple canopy. Orchids that you pay big money for here were like growing wild like weeds. I would see 5-foot-long minotaur lizards out in the wild. I would be stepping on things, and then out a foot-long lizards would be jumping out. And so I got to an area, it was a grass area, and I stood next to a banyan tree just to kind of stand. Then I looked down, and there's a cobra right next to my foot.
Wow.
And so I'm standing there, my heart is beating, and I just thought, okay, what do I do, you know? And I had my camera with me. I thought if I took a picture, the click noise would maybe get it all angry and upset, and I just waited it out. I learned 2 things about a cobra. Number 1, they're long snakes. They're very long snakes. Plus, they move very fast. You generally can't outrun them. They move very fast.
Wow.
And then I slept under cobras. In one of the retreat centers where I spoke in Borneo, out in the rainforest. They had a little Baptist retreat center. So I slept, and it was on a mattress over a boarded bed with boards, slats, and I removed the slats. I removed the mattress, and in between the boards you could see cobras. I am not exaggerating. I am not. sleeping on top of cobras, you know.
It was nice and warm.
Well,
That's
I
why
mean,
they
I
were
thought
there,
to
I
myself, oh my goodness, you know. So, but I've had adventures and travel. One of the most fascinating places was Mali, Africa, where Timbuktu is.
So you really were in Timbuktu.
There is a Timbuktu, and we were outside. Timbuktu is a historical place at one time. It was massive, 10,000 students, a massive university. Salt back then was what oil is now, was a massive trade center. And I've just been in a lot of places, dangerous and things. But I want to tell you, those of you that are pastors that are watching, sometimes the most dangerous is a Baptist business meeting. That's, you know, I mean, I've got the scars to show it.
I bet you do.
Most pastors, when they drop out and quit, don't from one knockout blow. It's what we used to call in Asia, death of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
But the greatest adventure is living for Jesus Christ and following Him.
That's wonderful. We need to take another brief break, Danny. We'll be back with Danny Daniels right after these messages.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
Enjoy terrific Las Vegas shows, scrumptious dining, and fun-filled attractions at half price. Wow! Visit LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. If you use discount code VEGAS, you'll get over $2,000 worth of discounts for only $34.95. Just $34.95. LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. Act now.
Welcome. I'm Dale Davidson. You're watching Las Vegas Tonight, and we are interviewing Pastor Danny Daniels. And at the outset, I was kind of kidding and saying Reverend and Doctor and all of that sort of thing, but you are all of those. Let's talk a little bit about your academic background, which is very impressive. Cal Baptist is where we left.
Cal Baptist University.
And what did you do after that?
I went to Golden Gate Theological Seminary and got my Master of Divinity degree there, and technically I was the valedictorian of the class. The alleged rumor was that I had scored the highest scores on the Bible exams in the history of the school up to that time, but I prefaced that with alleged rumor. So I did okay. I did well, and so the professors encouraged me to go into a PhD program, which is kind of unusual because back in high school and Marine Corps, I was kind of a big goof-off kind of kid and underachiever. But going through that education process, professors brought out something in me that I really didn't know that I had. And so I did the PhD program, PhD candidacy. Right now, I passed orals and comps exams. Also took at the Graduate School of UC Berkeley. They call it Berserkly, and now I know why. That was quite an adventure, and it was exciting, a place to be. So I've had the privilege of teaching at Golden Gate. I've done conferences and lectures. I lectured a week at the Central Theological College of Africa in Andola, Zambia, and my lecture topic was the glory of Jesus Christ in the prologue of John, John chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. And a whole variety of lectureships, but I teach regularly at the Golden Gate Baptist Seminary location here in Las Vegas. It's called the Contextualized Learning Development Center / Silver State Bible Institute, and it allows people to get some advanced credits. I've taught the preaching class, New Testament, Old Testament. Currently, last night, I taught the church history class, and it's just an opportunity and a real blessing to teach. And always had wanted to write a book. So the first book I wrote was Mortal Midnight, where I talk about my Vietnam experience and some of the early adventures that I had. And I wrote the book to promote myself. Rick Warren said that, Danny, you're a shameless self-promoter. You know?
Oh, kind of pot calling the kettle black there a little.
Yeah, I guess. And
he's an accomplished promoter.
I should have, you know, sarcastically said
we like
back,
him.
Well, I've got something to promote and stuff. I've kind of backed off a little bit. Here's the thing. When I was young, and don't misunderstand me, when I was young in the ministry, I was very ambitious and things, and I was 10% talent and 90% ambition. Now, at my age, I'm AARP qualified, and then some. I'm 90% talent and 10% ambition, you know, been there, done that. But the thing is, when I should be retired or ought to be retired or other people are retired, I've got more passion and more fire, and I feel more places still left to go for the gospel, for Jesus Christ. I've got millions of miles behind me, but I want to have at least another million ahead of me. As I mentioned one time, 3 separate weekends I preached on 3 different continents consecutively.
That's spectacular.
And so then I wrote another book on witnessing, on evangelism, which was one of the fortes I taught at Golden Gate, personal evangelism class. And at Saddleback Church, Rick Warren and I taught the first 401 evangelism class to 2,000 people on a Sunday afternoon. We team taught that, and I would teach that pretty regularly, but always have had a heart for evangelism. Guys that knew me from Cal Baptist University and Golden Gate always said, well, you were very evangelistic. And I thought to myself, well, shouldn't all Christians, you know, be evangelistic? I mean, yeah, I know people say, well, it's not my gift. And technically, there's the gift of evangelist compared to pastor, teacher, apostle, prophet, forth-telling God's word. But every Christian is to be a witness. In fact, in the Bible, in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jesus had 122 encounters with people, either in a group or one-on-one. And out of the 122, only 10 were in the context of the synagogue or temple or, let's say, church.
Right.
The rest were out in the highways and byways. The rest were not on Sunday, but on Mondays through Saturday. And so I wrote a book called How to Go Verbal for Christ. I'm doing a complete rewrite on it now to bring it up to date with the postmodern generation. And I've come up with a witnessing strategy called bold wisdom. How do you speak with boldness and wisdom? And witnessing has changed from when I started. Back in the days that Rick Warren and I were praying together and mentoring each other and going out witnessing together, Rick and I would go into biker bars and talk to people about Jesus. And I could tell you all kinds of stories. We were both influenced by Arthur Blessed and some of the antics that he had done in his witnessing. But back in those days, you could go up to somebody and share the 4 Spiritual Law booklet or the Billy Graham Steps to Peace with God booklet and say, God has a wonderful plan for your life. God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. And you would quote Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. All right, today, especially with the younger generation, they're not going to accept propositional truth. And back in the early 70s, even though they might reject it, they would still say that the Bible has some validity, some authority.
Understand the concept.
Yeah, in the minds of many, it doesn't. So if today I went to UNLV and talked to a freshman or a sophomore and said, God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. But the problem is all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Of course, I always say all have sinned or have been sinned against, some more, some less. They would respond and say, well, wait a minute, I'm God. What is God? Words don't mean anything. There is no absolute truth. And by the way, to say there's no absolute truth, isn't that in and of itself an absolute truth? So before, in my personal witnessing, and this is what I'm teaching and training, I talk about relational truth first. And I try to begin where God began in the Bible. He began with creation. So I begin with questions like, well, where did we come from? Why are you here? And of course, they're all going to say they evolved, they had evolution. And I say, well, you know, that's interesting. I have three problems with evolution: the beginning, the middle, and the end. The end, we've not evolved. We're still the same barbarians 10,000 years ago. I mean, look at the news even today with what's going on in Iraq and the heads being cut off, and they're in Ukraine and all kinds of places. There's no end in evolution. How about the beginning? I have a problem with the beginning. Even if there was a little speck of something in that cosmic ganglia, where did that come from? So I have a problem with the end game of evolution, the beginning, and especially the middle. Where's the missing link?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this is what I tell them. As soon as they find the missing link, I'll start believing in evolution like you. You know, it gives them something to think about. It gives them something to choose. So before I give propositional truth, I give personal and relational truth. And what often happens is they'll go, well, that's good for you. That's your truth. I have my truth. So I begin where God begins in His revelation in the Bible, with creation. And then I generally bring it into relational truth. So I'll ask, once I've listened, and by the way, so much of witnessing is listening. It's just shutting up and being quiet and let them tell you their heart issues, their hot button, where they're at,
you can address
where they
those
hurt.
issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, so generally speaking, I'll ask them, hey, you know, like old people, what are 2 or 3 of the biggest things that you fear? And of course, loneliness comes up, death comes up, and that's when I come in and say, Jesus Christ has an answer for that. And I call it bold witness. Bold in that we go verbal, and part of the thesis in my Going Verbal book on witnessing was all those airplanes I flew all over the world. I could tell you adventures. I could tell you when a plane was going down and it didn't crash. I'm not going to tell you, you know, the whole story of things. But an airplane has to have 2 wings to fly. And people often say, well, I witness by my life, whereas others witness by their lip. Well, we need to witness both by our lip and life. If we witness by our lip and there's no life, it's inauthentic. It's kind of bogus.
Sure.
But if we witness with our life and not our lip, it's incomplete. And we need to find the balance. Jesus, who had the life, both witnessed by life and lip. So it's bold, but it's also called wisdom, because Peter writes about talking with salt, having wisdom in our speech to show people what is our hope. And so those are some of the areas. I've taught the evangelism class and wrote a book, and now I'm revising that one. And then I wrote a book 2 years ago called The 2012 Delusion. 2012 Delusion.
Everybody thinking that would be the end of time, and
debunking the Mayan calendar,
the crust was
and the New Age,
and
the cosmic galactic cross that was going to send a beam on everybody's pineal gland. We would have an evolutionary jump, and there would be peace and everything. Of course, if that was going to be true, I wonder if the Taliban would also buy into it. But it was all phony and a sham, and you know, we've all heard this before. Remember the Jupiter effect. And then Y2K, he meant Y2K.
It came and went.
Planes going to drop out of the sky and things. And Jesus Christ is the truth. And superstition, just kind of interesting how it goes about.
Oh, yeah. We're going to need to take another brief break, Danny. I do want to, in this next segment, I want to talk about the end times and are we living in them. So I'll give you a second to think about that. We'll be back with Danny Daniels right after this.
Drawn by the lights, glamour, and opportunities in Sin City, they come from all over the world, searching for their chance to be a pretty woman, a success, or maybe just to have a better life. Be somebody. What happened after they got here is literally changing the world. From the story of Tommy Scott, a former gang enforcer turned Christian evangelist, to the Hookers for Jesus Outreach Ministry, to the heart-wrenching story of Arturo Martinez, and his heroic act of forgiving the man who assaulted and murdered his wife and 10-year-old daughter. Las Vegas Tonight presents an extraordinary depiction of Las Vegas as a city of transformation, from Sin City to Vegas Saints. Las Vegas Tonight, from Sin City to Vegas Saints, a collection of true stories of transformation, people whose lives were transformed, and people who are now transforming the world.
Enjoy terrific Las Vegas shows, scrumptious dining, and fun-filled attractions at half price. Wow! Visit LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. If you use discount code VEGAS, you'll get over $2,000 worth of discounts for only $34.95. Just $34.95. LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. Act now.
Welcome back to Las Vegas Tonight. In this, our final segment of the show, we're going to bite off not any more than he can chew, because I've never seen him stumped. Danny Daniels is our guest, and he's a very knowledgeable Bible scholar. How many times have you read the Bible, by the way?
I've read the Bible through from cover to cover 60 times. I'm right now into my 61st, and I'm in the middle of Ezekiel now. I usually like to read about 10, 11, 12 chapters a day.
Speaking of Ezekiel, let's talk prophetic literature for a minute.
Okay.
I've always believed, like many Christians, that the book of Revelation is very difficult to understand, that prophecy in Ezekiel and Daniel is, pretty tough as well. Tell me the secret to understanding prophecy in the Bible, if you can.
Okay.
That's a big question.
Well, I just want to first affirm that I am not a prophecy expert, but I am a prophecy student, and I have been for 40 years. As a pastor, I've had 4 different times I've taught through the book of Revelation, almost verse by verse, 4 different times. And it's interesting, each time I did it, I had a different emphasis and a different aspect of things. And so 1/4 of the Bible is prophecy. That's one of the ways we know that the Bible is authoritative, reliable, authentic, is by the prophecies. There's over 335 prophecies in the Old Testament of Christ's first coming. There's actually more of his second coming. The book of Revelation is, I always contend that when I start my class on Revelation, I shock my students by saying, this is the easiest book in the Bible to know and study and understand. And they kind of
look at you like, what?
Well, they look at me like a calf staring at a new gate.
We got horns, we got horses of different colors.
It says in Revelation 1:3 that this was given, and it's the only book that has within it a blessing for those who read it, to heed and read, so it's apocalyptic literature, which is a different kind of literature. That's why it's so difficult to us as Western minds. The Eastern mind, the Oriental mind, it's different. And so part of the problem is our Western mind. And then it is prophecy. It is apocalyptic literature, from apocalypsis, which means to undo the curtain. That's why Revelation is called the apocalypse. But you could divide it into 3 segments of 7 events that are going to come. Some have it cyclic, some have it straight line. I'm looking a lot of it more concurrent, more concentric. And first of all, the book of Revelation is a worship book.
Really?
People going through tribulation and trials and struggles, especially right now in Muslim lands, in olden times in communist land, today in China and North Vietnam, North Korea. It's a worship book. There's 2 chapters, chapter 4 and 5, about worship. It's a worship book. It's a war book, the struggle between good and evil, the struggle between the devil and Jesus, and it's a we win book. It's a we win book. It's also a witness book. We witness the victory that there is in Jesus Christ. I personally believe that we're close to the end times. The whole ball of wax changed, as they call it, a paradigm shift. May 14, 1948, when Israel was regathered. You ask the key to prophecy, Israel, and the regathering of Israel is the big master key. And so we're seeing,
watch Israel, we know,
yes,
where we are in terms of the end times.
It's not only a key, it's God's timepiece. Things are happening. We did mention Ezekiel. Ezekiel 38, 39 prophesies a war against Israel led by Russia, Iran, Iraq, the Muslim countries of North Africa, and boy, that's current events. Now, I can't tell you whether that's part of the Battle of Armageddon, it's before the rapture, rupture, whatever you want to call it, or the tribulation, or wherever, but Israel's going to win. Israel's going to win. God's people have the victory. We're on the winning side. And the book was written as an encouragement for those who are suffering. It also presents, the other key to the book of Revelation is that it's not just about events and end times, and the horns and trumpets all have symbolic meanings, but if you look at previous scriptures, perhaps you hadn't heard this, or perhaps you're viewing, unless you've taught heavily, there's 800 allusions to Old Testament events and things in the book of Revelation.
Really?
It may not say it the way it says it in Matthew, where it says, and this happens so that it may be fulfilled, but there are over 800 allusions in 404 verses in the book of Revelation.
That's two a verse.
So yeah, if you're biblically illiterate, I mean, you're not going to understand. It'll drive you crazy to try to read the book of Revelation,
right,
especially if you've not read all of the scripture and have a little bit of understanding. Everything that ends and consummates in the book of Revelation was begun in the book of Genesis. There's parallels, like bookends.
66 chapters, and it all began in number 1, and it ends in 66.
And just a variety of those kind of things. The key, the book of Revelation is an unveiling of Jesus Christ in his full glory. It's not just a revelation by Jesus Christ, it is a revelation of Jesus Christ as Lord of Lords, King of Kings. He's presented as the Lamb and Lion and Lord, Lion of the tribe of Judah. So it's a book not knowing exact events, but it's a book that presents Jesus Christ as Lord, as coming conqueror and ruler in the context of geopolitics. And of course it all resolves around the Middle East. People always ask me, is America prophesied in the Bible? Is America? And I say yes and no.
Yes.
I say yes, all nations that forget God will go to hell. And I say no, not in specific. Now, British Anglo-Israelism say that we're the lost 10 tribes of Israel from the Brits, and a lot of fascinating speculation, but, you know, no biblical. Everything focuses on that Middle East, that real estate that they're fighting over today.
Right now. Let's talk a little bit about your career now. Post-pastor.
Yes.
You now want to go back and really kind of back to the future. And,
yes.
And do more evangelism and speaking around the world than you've been able to when you've been tied to a church here in Las Vegas. Tell me a little bit about that and what you would encourage people to ask you to do.
Well, I've had to turn down a lot of things because tied down to being a pastor. I've had a lot of international invitations, and the Lord has been leading me because of things happening in America and the political climate and my love for this nation, that I'm going to try to do as many things as I could do strictly in the United States. And so I'm making myself available for revivals, conferences, evangelism training, Billy Graham, My Hope America Harvest Sundays or Harvest Sundays, men's conferences, men's retreats. I've spoken in the biggest churches in the world and in America, but I will go to the smallest church, the largest church, the in-between church. I go on a first-come, first-served basis.
What a blessing.
And so if you're interested, I think on the screen they'll have an email where to contact me.
Danny's email address is DD, as in Danny Daniels, DD49 at Cox.net. And we encourage you to get in touch with Danny. He's going to book up fast, so do it soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. I
You
appreciate
bet,
it.
Dale. God bless you. Yeah.
Thanks for coming
a lot of
on
fun.
again. We'll do it again soon.
All right.
And we'll be seeing you around here every week.
Yes, indeed. With bold wisdom.
Bold wisdom. Thank you so much
You
for
bet.
your wisdom today. Pastor Danny Daniels with Las Vegas Tonight. Please stick around. There's plenty more exciting stuff coming up here on this channel. And most of all, Dale Davidson, your host, says, as I do at the end of every show, please walk with him.
Enjoy terrific Las Vegas shows, scrumptious dining, and fun-filled attractions at half price. Wow! Visit LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. If you use discount code VEGAS, you'll get over $2,000 worth of discounts for only $34.95. Just $34.95. LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. Act now.
A potential audience of more than 50 million people is reached every week by Las Vegas Tonight. To keep the important message of Christ's love on the air, we need your prayers and financial blessings. Please send your tax-deductible gift to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. For a donation of $25 or more, we'll send you a copy of Dale Davidson's new book, Las Vegas Tonight, From Sin City to Vegas Saints. You'll love these inspiring stories of Las Vegas Christians who are changing the world. Or donate to the ministry, or order Dale's book by going to vegassaints.org. That's vegassaints.org. Or call us today at 702-480-3989. That's 480-3989. God bless you.
Enjoy terrific Las Vegas shows, scrumptious dining, and fun-filled attractions at half price. Wow! Visit LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. If you use discount code VEGAS, you'll get over $2,000 worth of discounts for only $34.95. Just $34.95. LasVegasPerks.com. That's LasVegasPerks.com. Act now.
In the valley of the dying sun, I walk a crooked path alone. I came across the shadow of a man with an angel's breath. Oh boy, he said to me, I see your future. Though you long for peace, the sword is your father. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you when I kill a good man to keep myself from being killed by him. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you when I hold my girl and wonder if she'll ever love again. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of you. Wash the blood off my head. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of you. Bathed in the powder of 1,000 guns, I am the king of sorrows. Watered by the tears of the innocent one, the river grows, it moves, it swells, sun, it calls to me, your days are numbered. So thus seed you will, but I am the reaper. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you when you kill a good man to keep yourself from being killed by him. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you when you hold your girl and wonder if she'll ever love again. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of you. Wash the blood off your head. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of you. I howled at the moon like a wolf in the night. You wanna finish it? We're gonna finish it right. And then I felt it with the chill up my spine. There are no words to use that truly describe the glory of the angel for the terror in me. Tonight will be my ending, or tonight my new beginning. For the first time I could see that God was not my enemy. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you. Like pieces of the sun, our light burns on and on and on. Like stars in the night sky, we shine. I'm living to shine on. 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 Shine on.
I am lost in blindness, and I refuse to believe that I can see. One has to accept a life of darkness. Years from now, I can only tell my children not to believe that simple grace triumphs over utter darkness. I was born in sin, and I was conceived in sin. It doesn't matter to God that I live every day of my life in hopelessness. No longer can it be said that there is a God who hears the cries of his people. My whole life testifies to one truth. Blindness has robbed me of every good thing, and it is no longer true that God saves those who are crushed in spirit. Now, I don't know much, but I know one thing for sure. I was born blind, with no hope and no future. But then I met Jesus, and he turned everything in my life upside down. I was born blind with no hope and no future. Now I don't know much, but I know one thing for sure. God saves those who are crushed in spirit. And it is no longer true that blindness has robbed me of every good thing. My whole life testifies to one truth. There is a God who hears the cries of his people. No longer can it be said that I live every day of my life in hopelessness. It doesn't matter to God that I was born in sin and I was conceived in sin. Simple grace triumphs over utter darkness. Years from now, I can only tell my children not to believe that one has to accept a life of darkness. I can see, and I refuse to believe that I am lost in blindness.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with Dale Davidson. Send your tax-deductible gifts to Dale Davidson Ministries, 9030 West Sahara Avenue, number 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. Or call 702-480-3989. Thanks for watching.